Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are going to be asking the question will Disney keep Eternals in the movie theaters, or will it be released simultaneously onto Disney Plus? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to first take a look at these two variety articles, starting with this one. Marvel's Shang-Chi crushes Labor Day weekend records with $94 million. I swear I can read today. Disney on Sunday had projected that Shang-Chi would finish the extended weekend with $90 million from 4,300 theaters, but the film sold more tickets than anticipated on Monday, boosting its overall tally to just shy of that. To just shy of that $100 million mark. In normal times, that wouldn't be much of a feat for an installment in the commercially beloved MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. But during the pandemic, it's on track to become one of the highest grossing movies of the year. Since Labor Day is traditionally a slow weekend at the box office, the film's 3-day total of $75.5 million blew past previous the record set by 2007's Halloween and its $30.6 million start. Despite concerns the Delta variant would keep audiences at home, Shang-Chi notched the second biggest opening weekend of the pandemic, behind only Black Widow with $80 million. Impressively, it ranked ahead of Universal's Fast and Furious sequel, Fast and Furious 9, which was at $70 million, and Paramount's A Quiet Place Part 2 at $48 million opening weekend. Both of which opened earlier in the summer at a time when COVID-19 looked like it might eventually abate. At the international box office, Shang-Chi amassed $56.2 million in key markets such as France, Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom, and Japan. The film doesn't have a release date in China, which is an important territory for Marvel movies. Globally, Shang-Chi has made $146.2 million so far. Black Widow showed what a Marvel movie can do in pandemic conditions, and that release had the additional burden of a streaming option, says David A. Gross. For Marvel, Shang-Chi is a creative departure, and at a cost of over $150 million, the results are very good. Unlike Black Widow, which debuted simultaneously on Disney+, Shang-Chi is playing only in theaters for its first 45 days of release before it lands on demand. Disney CEO Bob Chapek called its theatrical-only release a quote-unquote interesting experiment, and indicated its ticket sales would influence plans for future releases such as Eternals, which is scheduled for November 5th. Directed by, I'm going to mispronounce this name, directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. Shang-Chi takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame and centers on a skilled martial artist who is forced to confront his past when he is targeted by the covert Ten Rings organization. In a landmark moment for representation, it's the first installment in the MCU, the biggest film franchise to feature an Asian star and predominantly Asian cast. Oh, so they're taking the Black Panther approach. Moviegoers and critics were impressed with the final product. It has a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes and an A cinema score from audiences. Cinema score does not mean a damn thing because they usually poll people the second they come out of the theater, and Rotten Tomatoes has lost all of its credibility. So to me, that's not really saying much. Last week's champ, Universal's thriller Candyman, slid to second place, collecting $10.5 million over the weekend, and an impressive $13 million through Monday. The horror film, which is playing only in theaters, has made $41 million to date, a strong result given its $25 million production budget. In third place, Disney and 20th Century sci-fi comedy Free Guy finished Monday with $11.2 million, including $8.7 million from Friday to Sunday, bringing ticket sales to $94.3 million total. Thus far. Paramount's animated adventure Paw Patrol and Disney's family-friendly film Jungle Cruise tied the number 4 spot, with each taking in $4 million over the 3-day weekend and $5.2 million through Monday. Paw Patrol, based on the popular children's TV program, has generated $31 million to date, while Jungle Cruise recently crossed the $100 million mark at the domestic box office, with its tally currently at $106.8 million at the box office. And Jungle Cruise was another one of those movies that released simultaneously onto Disney+. So we know that Shang-Chi so far has done quite well in theaters. Starting off, grossing $94 million opening weekend. But one example I would love to bring up that this article doesn't is there was another superhero movie a few years ago that also grossed around $94 million. Not actually. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This article got updated as I was recording this. Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings capped off Labor Day weekend at the box office with a bang. The superhero action adventure starring Canadian actor Simu Liu had an even bigger debut than expected, collecting $94.4 million in its first 4 days of release and setting a new high watermark for the holiday weekend. But the example that I was going to bring up about another superhero movie that made close to $94 million, it didn't make exactly $94.4 million, but it made in the same ballpark, was 2017's Justice League. I think it made 93.5 to 94 million, but yet that movie still went on and became a box office bomb. So in reality, while a strong opening weekend is a good sign, keep in mind, what's that second weekend drop off going to be? Which is bringing us to the second article here, and that is Marvel's Shang-Chi crushed box office expectations. Will that convince Disney to keep Eternals in theaters? Prior to the debut of Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Disney CEO Bob Chapek called its old-school theatrical release an interesting experiment. The experiment in question: would enough people show up to their local multiplex to see the latest Marvel movie to justify keeping the $200 million budgeted film in theaters without an immediate backstop on Disney+? Overall, ticket sales have been depressed in the pandemic, and the studio's superhero installments typically open to more than $100 million in non-COVID times. But again, as we have brought up in the theaters versus streaming debate videos, theatrical movie theater attendance has been on a decline for the last 20 years. So it is an interesting experiment, but also keep in mind, it doesn't take that many people to go see a movie for it to make $1 billion like it did, 20, 25 years ago. This weekend's box office tallies revealed that, yes, even with the Delta variant raging, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings could deliver movie theaters a much-needed jolt. The 25th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, think about that. This is the 25th movie in the MCU. The 25th James Bond movie is set to come out this October, but that franchise has been around for damn near 60 years. The MCU came out in 2008, so we're talking only 13 years and 25 entries. If that doesn't scream overbloated, I don't know what that is. The 25th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe had a bigger debut than the studio initially reported, collecting a mighty $94.4 million over the four-day Labor Day holiday weekend. Tracking had indicated a 3-day total around $50 million. So the movie's better than expected start. It made $75.5 million over the traditional 3-day weekend, offers Disney and cinema owners alike a boost of confidence and audience loyalty to the big screen, even as the studio moves aggressively into the streaming space, making its debut more impressive. Labor Day is typically a slow weekend at the box office as families opt to spend time outside before summer ends. Shang-Chi smashed the holiday weekend record previously set by 2007's Halloween with $30.6 million. Quote, Marvel has set a remarkable standard for itself, and the opening is just below average for a Marvel series launch, says David A. Gross, who runs the movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Under normal conditions, Marvel would not launch on Labor Day, and the opening would be bigger. Shang-Chi didn't only establish a new high watermark for Labor Day, it landed the second best opening weekend of the pandemic behind Black Widow, $80 million in the first 3 days. However, Black Widow wasn't only available in theaters, and Disney reported that Black Widow generated $60 million in its inaugural weekend on Disney+. In addition to its box office haul, it has since made at least $125 million from streaming rentals. Does that tell Disney that Shang-Chi and other Marvel properties could stand to gross even more money with a day-and-date release on Disney+? Or would people turn out in greater numbers to watch the studio's latest superhero entry on the big screen if they didn't have the option to watch it from the couch? Those are unknowable questions. Well, no shit, you can't really account for that. Making it challenging to predict Disney's plans for Marvel's upcoming installment, The Eternals, which is scheduled for November 5th. It could follow the path of Shang-Chi and play exclusively in theaters for 45 days before moving to digital platforms, or it could replicate the pandemic-inspired rollout of many studios' new movies, such as Black Widow, Cruella, and Jungle Cruise, which premiered simultaneously in cinemas and on Disney Plus for $30. Eric Handler, a Wall Street analyst with MKM Partners, estimates Shang-Chi needed to make at least $70 million in its first 4 days to satisfy Disney and encourage the studio to nix a hybrid release for Eternals. He says day-and-date releases on streaming platforms cuts into downstream revenues like on-demand rentals later on. Though Black Widow stands as the highest grossing movie of the year in the US with $182 million, its star Scarlett Johansson sued Disney in a bombshell lawsuit, asserting the decision to simultaneously release Black Widow in theaters and on Disney Plus cannibalized the film's box office revenue and cost her tens of millions of dollars in back-end bonuses. Quote, studios are very concerned about whether or not these movies can be profitable, Handler says of the big budgeted films. How many new subscribers are these movies each bringing in? Right now, from an investor standpoint, subscriber growth is important, but you have to look at the bottom line, end quote. A key difference between Black Widow and Shang-Chi is the former centers on a hero that moviegoers have gotten to know and love through a swath of Avengers mashup movies. In contrast, Shang-Chi, starring Canadian actor Simu Liu as the eponymous hero in Crazy Rich Asians breakout Awkwafina as his best friend turned sidekick, follows a character that doesn't have as much brand awareness as, say, Iron Man, Spider-Man, or even Thor. Similarly, Eternals, directed by Oscar winner Chloe Zhao and starring Angelina Jolie, Gemma Chan, Kit Harington, Richard Madden, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. I think it's Kumail Nanjiani. He played Dinesh on Silicon Valley. Focuses on an otherworldly species that's not as well known to the casual comic book fan. That didn't stop moviegoers from showing up to see Shang-Chi, which had a similar turnout at the domestic box office to 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp with Paul Rudd, that was $75 million, and 2016's Doctor Strange with Benedict Cumberbatch, $85 million. It's also not far off from 2019's Spider-Man Far From Home, led by Tom Holland, at $92 million. The character Shang-Chi may not have been a household name, but the movie, like Black Panther and Captain Marvel before it, was a watershed moment in representation as moviegoers flocked to see themselves reflected on screen in the first Marvel movie with an Asian lead and primarily Asian cast. Again, they're taking the Black Panther approach. Okay, because I've already read what the movie is. It's hard to know just how big of a difference its inclusiveness made when it comes to selling tickets, because Disney doesn't break down attendance by demographic. Again, how are you going to break that down by demographic? That's damn near impossible. However, organizations like Gold Open rallied behind the film to ensure Shang-Chi had a strong turnout. That's good news as Marvel continues to add greater diversity to its cinematic universe, with Eternals marking its inclusion of the first openly gay superhero, blah, blah, blah. Disney is proving they can take minor characters and turn them into something, says Michael Pachter, an equity research analyst at Wedbush Securities who covers the entertainment industry. He also does a lot of gaming stuff, too. Guardians of the Galaxy proved the formula. You can take an unknown character and create franchises. To that end, Pachter says it would be a bad idea for Disney to continue its hybrid model. I think that, quote, I think the days of the hybrid release are fast coming to an end, Pachter says. It impacts theatrical revenues by some portion, and it cannibalizes future premium video-on-demand rentals. Piracy is also a massive concern, he adds. After Black Widow debuted online, it shot to the top of piracy websites. Well, no shit. According to insiders, Disney has a little over two weeks to make a decision about plans for the Eternals, and the decision won't be determined solely by opening weekend sales for Shang-Chi. However, box office revenues for Shang-Chi in its second weekend of release will be indicative about the film's long-term prospects at the box office. For Marvel movies in particular, they tend to draw massive crowds in its first few days. Hollywood will be eager to see if the film plummets in its sophomore outing, similar to tentpoles like Black Widow and the Warner Bros. Comic book film The Suicide Squad, or if Shang-Chi holds steady, like Disney's other theatrical-only release, the Ryan Reynolds-led action comedy Free Guy. Though the film industry remains in flux, it isn't all bad news for cinema operators. Shortly after Disney announced Shang-Chi broke Labor Day weekend records, Sony announced plans to release its comic book adaptation Venom Let There Be Carnage 2 weeks ahead of schedule. That had movie theater owner breathing a sigh of relief, especially after the speculation that the Tom Hardy-led film would be pushed into 2022, and news that Paramount took its Tom Cruise temple Top Gun Maverick off the calendar in 2021 and moved it into next year. For those who survived months-long theater closures and seemingly endless release date delays, only to endure the setbacks caused by the Delta variant, Shang-Chi may just be the kind of hero film exhibition business needs. And that's pretty much all the article says. But I do agree that Disney's decision regarding the Eternals, and I hate to have to do this because I know I posed this question in the title of the video, will Disney release Eternals in theaters only, or will it be simultaneously released to Disney Plus? Well, if we're judging it based on just opening weekend numbers, then it's a very good assumption that Disney will release Eternals as a theatrical only experience. But like I said, another movie that grossed nearly $94 million opening weekend, but still bombed in the box office, was 2017's Justice League. So it's going to really depend on what that second weekend drop-off is. And we're obviously not going to know what that second weekend drop-off is until at least the following Monday or Tuesday. This video is going out September 8th or September 9th, meaning that second weekend drop-off, we're not going to have those numbers until Monday, September 13th, 2021, or possibly even Tuesday the 14th. So when those numbers come out, I will do a follow-up to this. And guys, that's pretty much all I got for you. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you guys have been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.